Okay, I think this is a pretty good starting number. So hi everyone, welcome back to another Kumi session. If you're new here, I'll make sure to put some links where you'll see past videos of Kumi. You can also learn about Sabio. So I'll just provide some of those links during our session today. So today we have the pleasure of being joined by Eyewitness Atrocities, and I think there's a few colleagues from Eyewitness Atrocities today. Nadeshda will be doing, I think, most of the talking, and she is the legal advisor for Eyewitness. And Eyewitness Atrocities is an organization that was initiated by the International Bar Association, and they use technology to document mass atrocity crimes. And this session is really important and exciting for us because they'll be explaining a little bit of their work, so I won't elaborate too much on it. But we also have a number of partners on the ground who will be listening in on the session after. Obviously, it's a little late in Palestine, so they probably won't attend this session live, but this would be an important kind of session for them to kind of learn more about the important work that Eyewitness is doing abroad as well as locally in Palestine. So thank you to the team. I see a few team members of Eyewitness, and we can talk, they can talk for about, I think 40 minutes, and then maybe we can have like a little bit of a Q&A session. So yeah, and if you guys have any questions while they give their presentation, just feel free to put it in the chat and we'll make sure that that's relayed to them. So I'll make Nadeshda, oh, you can be co-host. Maybe that would help you to share your presentation. Okay, awesome. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with us, and we're really excited to learn more.
Thank you so much, Than, and thank you to Sabil and Kumi now for having us. We're really grateful. And thank you to all of you for joining and taking time out of your day. So I'll just share my screen. Can you all see this PowerPoint? Okay, great.
Yes.
So basically, as Than mentioned today, I'll just go briefly through what our organization does and the work we've been doing in Palestine, along with partners who use the Eyewitness to Atrocities app. So we're hoping that this session will be in particular useful for those of you who might be going to Palestine and who typically use your phones to document what's occurring. And this may be a useful tool for you. Also for anyone that, as Than mentioned, Palestinians on the ground who are currently documenting, we're hoping that this tool will be useful for the work that they're doing that's incredibly important in terms of truth telling to show what's happening on the ground, but also for accountability and justice and criminal accountability in particular against the perpetrators. So just briefly, who are we? So Than mentioned it a little briefly, but essentially Eyewitness to Atrocities, we're a not-for-profit, we're an NGO based in London, and we were established in 2015 by the International Bar Association, which is basically a large group. It's a membership organization for lawyers and judges across the world. And we essentially combine law and technology to try to promote accountability for human rights violations and international crimes like war crimes and genocide. And the primary way we do this is through offering this free mobile app, which is a control capture mobile app, which I'll explain a little bit in detail later. And this app is available for free. It's available in Arabic as well as English and other languages. And it's available on Android phones. And we like to say that this app is essentially a tool in the documentation toolkit for activists, NGOs, human rights defenders who are taking photos and videos of what they're seeing. So the first thing maybe to touch on is why are photos and videos a useful form of evidence? So one thing is it can be very compelling. So when you see in a courtroom people showing photos or videos of these crimes, it's very powerful, especially in situations where It's not possible for international lawyers or international investigators to enter the country where things are occurring because the government is banning them. For example, in Gaza, where international journalists or international accountability bodies are not able to be admitted there to see what's occurring. This type of evidence captured by grassroots organizations and activists is incredibly important. And then in terms of what is being captured, so this can tell us a lot about the human rights violations and crimes that are occurring. So one thing is it can tell us a lot about the perpetrators. So for instance, if there was an airstrike on a hospital or something like this, and then afterwards someone captures photographs of the weapon remnants, particularly close-up video photos of any numbers or serial numbers on the weapons, that can potentially identify the weapon used, and also the perpetrators. It can also show the impact of the destruction and patterns. So if there are multiple photos coming out of different hospitals in an area being attacked, or multiple homes in an area being demolished, things like this, or settler attacks, it can help prove patterns. And also any photos or videos taken of victims, their injuries that are taken with their consent. That's very important to really show the impact that this is having on communities. And then also this type of evidence is really important because it can corroborate other type of evidence when we're talking about criminal accountability. So if someone has provided a witness testimony to what they've witnessed or experienced themselves, and then alongside their testimony, there are photos that really show and verify what they've said, that can really be important. And together it puts the puzzle pieces together to build a case against these perpetrators. But then, of course, there are challenges to this type of evidence. So you can see in this image here, I've just taken this off the internet. It's a photo of a burnt out car and there's a lot of smoke. And then you can see it's the caption, but it says that it's people trying to extinguish fires today following an airstrike that targeted the rebel-held northern city of Idlib. So Idlib is in Syria. So when this type of information is taken from the internet, if it's going to be admitted as evidence in court, the judges and the decision makers are going to ask, well, how do we really know that it was taken in Syria? How do we know that it hasn't been changed in any way? Because nowadays with artificial intelligence, it's very easy to manipulate this type of imagery. And this is one hurdle that we're noticing with Palestinian partners as well, because they always talk about this struggle to be believed because they're witnessing so much. But oftentimes people that do this important work are discredited, which is a huge shame because they're putting themselves at risk to tell this truth, which is why one of the reasons why this app was created. So in terms of formal kind of barriers to this type of evidence being used in courts, one of them is a lack of clear metadata. So when we're talking about metadata, this is data that underpins the evidence. So it can be the date, location, and time information. So where was this image actually captured? When was it captured? As I said, we need to be able to prove that it hasn't been edited or manipulated. If this type of photos, so if someone takes a photo using their camera or using their phone, if that image isn't stored correctly, and then they try to admit it in court, the judges may decide that it's inadmissible because we haven't been able to prove that it's been collected and stored carefully. And then, as I said, if all of these barriers aren't addressed, then the risk is that this evidence will be inadmissible, which, as I said, is a huge shame because people are putting themselves at risk. So this is why authentication matters. I'm not going to go through this because I've kind of explained it, but there are several ways to authenticate this type of evidence. One is after someone's taken a photograph, and for example, if they put it on social media like Facebook, oftentimes these Facebook platforms, they strip the metadata. So you're not able to, so if an investigator is trolling through Facebook trying to find information, they might find a video that seems really compelling and shows a lot of valuable information. But if they're not able to take that metadata, then it's very difficult to verify it. So there are certain ways to verify. There are organizations that their whole job, and they do incredible work, is they go through social media platforms, they take all these videos, they archive it, store it properly, and then they go through each one and try to compare it to Google Earth, use Google Maps to try to really locate where this happened. But that can be very time and resource intensive, and sometimes it's not possible to do that. So this is just to give you a background into why Eyewitness to Atrocities and the app was formed. So the app was created in 2015, so we're coming into our 10-year anniversary, which is really exciting for us. But essentially, the app was created by lawyers who consulted heavily with tech experts and international investigators and lawyers to understand what are the minimum requirements needed for this type of footage to be admitted in court. There was also consultations with documenters who document on the ground to understand what are their needs and what are the security risks that they face to come up with this app. That's this ultimate product that we have that's free. So in terms of how we work, so we work in three pillars. We have the app, and then we have the server system where we store all that footage that documenters capture. And then we have the third pillar, which is what do we actually do with the footage that's captured? And that's around really trying to analyze the footage, categorize it, and then sharing it with different accountability mechanisms such as international courts and the UN or domestic courts who might be able to act on this for accountability. So I'll go through each of those pillars. So the first is the app itself. As I said, it's free to download for anyone, only available on Android phones. So if you've got an Android phone, feel free to even test it out now. The app is called Eyewitness to Atrocities. You go onto the Google Play Store and enter that, and you'll be able to download the app for free. And then once someone downloads it, essentially they have to open the app, and it looks like a normal camera app, the normal camera on your phone, essentially. And you can capture what you're seeing on the ground, and you can capture photos, videos, and audio files as well. And one of the key things is that what I was telling you before about how can we prove where this footage was taken and the date and time. So this is done automatically through the app, because while someone's recording, in the background, the technology is automatically capturing the location, date, and time information. So the date and time information is taken from the mobile device itself. So if your mobile device is set to the local Palestinian time, it'll capture that information so we can know when it was captured. But of course, the device time and date can be changed manually, so it's not the most reliable. So another way to collect this information is that the app collects GPS satellite for the date and time, which is accurate, highly accurate. And then in terms of location information, the app captures the location through three sources. One is the GPS satellites, one is the phone connects to nearby cell towers within range, and then the third is nearby Wi-Fi networks. And then importantly, you don't need internet for this information to be captured, which is important because in certain areas in Palestine, there may be low internet connectivity, things like this. So you only need the internet to actually download the app. But then when someone is going out into rural areas, capturing footage, they don't need the internet for that. And then all of that information is all of those photos, videos, and the metadata behind them is stored in a secure encrypted gallery called the Eyewitness gallery. So all the information is not stored in the normal gallery, but in a separate gallery. And then there are also security features, given that so many documenters all across the world face so many risks to doing this really important work. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if one thing I wanted to say is if you are documenting currently and you're interested in this app, please do reach out to us because we can hold more tailored training on how to actually use the app and how to install it. And then at those trainings, we can kind of go through the security features. But just broadly, some of the security features include people being able to use the app anonymously. There are quick delete options. So if someone's going through a checkpoint and they're worried that their phone's going to be searched, they can quickly delete things like this. The second part of this whole process about trying to make sure footage captured is actually going to be used in courts and for accountability is the storage. So it's not just about how the evidence is collected and making sure it's collected properly according to proper standards, but it's also about how it's stored to prove that the footage hasn't been changed since it was captured to the point where it would be shared with different courts and mechanisms. So the way this is done is through several kind of steps. The first thing is the footage actually needs to be captured with the app itself for us to prove that it's verified and authentic. So unfortunately, it's not possible for someone to take a photo with their normal camera and then try to retroactively add it through the app for verification. Everything needs to come through the app itself. And what happens is when someone captures a video or a photo or an audio file, at the point of capture, based on all the pixels of that image, this thing called a hash value is generated. This is just a fancy word for like a unique digital fingerprint. So each item of footage, each photograph has a unique hash value. And then what happens is when they upload that footage to our secure encrypted server, it gets sent across the internet. And when we receive it, that footage, well, one thing to note is when it's sent across, it's broken down into tiny little pieces and sent through the internet. So if someone is watching the internet, it doesn't look like a big video going across, it looks like an email. And so because it's broken down into tiny pieces, when we receive it on our end, that image, those pieces are put back together like a puzzle to recreate that image. And then that hash value is recalculated. And if that hash value matches the original hash value, that's how we know that the footage hasn't been changed in any way since it was captured to us receiving it on the server where we safely store it. Another important thing is that once someone takes a photo and they upload the original copy, we just keep that original copy for safekeeping, as I said, so that we can share it with accountability mechanisms and prove that that is the original copy that's unchanged. But importantly, after someone has done that, they can upload a copy of their footage themselves and then, download a copy of the footage themselves and then share it through WhatsApp or share it with journalists or do whatever they want to do with it in terms of advocacy. It's just, as I said, in the background, we just keep that original copy indefinitely in the servers until it can be used. And then the third piece is once all that footage is received, what do we do with it? So currently, we've received footage from various countries and various conflict contexts. So ones we can kind of disclose are we've received footage from Ukraine, from Nigeria, from Palestine, from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So to date, we've received over 80,000 items of footage, which is a large amount of data. So then the question then becomes, how do we kind of sort it? So once we receive it on our end, We have also a roster of pro bono lawyers, so lawyers from law firms who've signed confidentiality agreements who assist us because our in-house team is quite small. So we go through all of these items individually and we tag it. So if in a photo we see a weapon or a military uniform, something like this, we tag those keywords so the database becomes more searchable. And then we draft reports based on what we're seeing in the footage, and we share the raw footage with accountability mechanisms. So we can say, okay, we're sharing this 200 items of footage from Palestine with the UN. 50 of them show weapons from this location, things like this, to assist their ongoing investigations. And we always do this in partnership with the organizations who capture the footage and own the footage. And we ask them for consent and we say, look, we think this body could benefit from the footage that you've taken. Do you consent? And if they consent, we share that. And if they don't consent, we don't share. So yeah, as I said, we've worked closely with several organizations, various courts, and UN bodies and investigative bodies to try to really bridge the gap between the important work that documenters are doing and making sure it reaches the right people so they can try to do something about it. So I guess the big question is why use the app compared to just using your normal camera? So I talked about this briefly, but just in summary, one thing is that, as I said, normally date, time, location of a photo can be changed, but the app has these technological features to try to make sure that the location and time, date information is firstly accurate and that it's unchangeable. And then another important feature is that we securely store this footage and can prove that it hasn't been changed in any way, essentially. This is the types of figures that that I've highlighted before. So we've received over 80,000 items of footage. We've got over 70 partners that we work with across the different regions, and also over the years, over 70 partnerships. And then also we've submitted over 70 submissions and dossiers to these accountability mechanisms. So in terms of how we actually work with the documenters on the ground, so as I said, we work with various groups, so NGOs, activists, human rights defenders, journalists. We can provide training. So this is kind of not a training, it's more just an informational session, but we have closed trainings where we actually explain how to download and use the app. We can also explain documentation techniques. So based on what people are witnessing, because in different contexts it can vary. So in some contexts, people are witnessing or experiencing torture. In other contexts, they're seeing more airstrikes. In the West Bank context, there's a lot of settler violence. So depending on the types of violations, we can provide some guidance on what to look out for, what kind of photographs to take. We can also have partnerships with these organizations. We can provide ongoing technical support on how to use the app. And then also if these organizations don't have in-house legal teams, because we do, we can work alongside them to strategize and say, well, what do you want your footage to do and where do you want it to go? And we can work together on that. And then also we can share the footage back with the documenters who captured it. So once they use the app and they capture the footage and they send it to our server, for security reasons, they may want to delete all that footage from their phone. And then afterwards, it's not lost because we have it and we can send it back to them through a back channel, through a secure channel with all that metadata as well. And then they can use it in their own work too. In terms of our work in Palestine, so the app has been used in Palestine since 2016, and to date we've received over 14,000 items of footage showing various things. So the aftermath of settler attacks, settlement expansion, incursions into refugee camps, home demolitions, the aftermath of drone strikes, attacks on food, olive groves, attacks on water supplies, things like this. And we've worked closely with various organizations who do incredible work in Palestine, with Al-Haq being an example. And then in terms of the impact, so where has this footage gone? So one case is Al-Haq captured footage showing these excavators being used to demolish homes in Palestine and in the expansion of settlements. And these excavators are international companies like Hyundai and JCB. And so, alongside Al Haq, we worked with an organization called Lawyers for Palestinian Human Rights, who basically submitted a complaint about one of the organizations who has these excavators in the UK, and it was to try to push a change in policy. We've also shared various reports as well with different UN special rapporteurs. Um, Maybe I'll leave it there for now. Um, Sorry, I'm just checking the time. Maybe just briefly in terms of, what to document, because one thing that's been raised is in Palestine, the violations are daily. It's the daily existence. Um, but everything is so important to capture. Um, and, like some of the examples are settler violence, the demolitions, the various operations, anything that documenters are currently seeing and capturing is continue to capture that because the hope is that it will be used for accountability in the future. Um, and yeah, I think maybe I'll leave it there for now. I don't know if anyone has questions.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I think it was so helpful to kind of learn more. And also, I think, especially with how much, AI and technology has been used in really horrible ways, it's really good to know that there's also this technology that's being used for accountability. I see a few questions and maybe I can kind of go through them. If you do have a question, refrain from maybe raising your hand and talking just to make the meeting more concise, and especially because we're showing this recording to local partners after the session. So I see a question here. I think you elaborated a little bit on this already, but someone just wanted maybe more clarification. If a person has to delete something because of a checkpoint, it automatically goes to a server that Eyewitness to Atrocities already has, or like in terms of just like how is the evidence kept if someone has to like delete the app or delete something from the app. And then there's another question from the same person about um if there's plans to create an app for iPhones or other like non-Android technology as well. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Those are really good questions. So the one on whether the app is available on iPhone. So we've had conversations about that, but unfortunately, it wouldn't offer the same security features or the same ability to capture location information. So at this stage, it's not available on iPhones. And then the question about footage and deletion. Yeah, that's a good question. So, one of the features of the app is you can select for auto upload, which means that if someone has takes a photo and they've got data on their phone, if they've got auto upload, everything will automatically be uploaded to our server as it's being captured. And then you can delete it off your phone so you don't need to worry about it. The only sort of caveat with that is that in some of these regions, data is really expensive. So just to make sure that if you enable that, that you remember that you've done that and that all of your data isn't going to be used up when you don't want it to be used up. So yeah, that's important to keep in mind, but that's definitely a possibility.
Okay, that's great. And I know like the live audience today is mostly international citizens. And I see a question here that I think can become like two questions that I maybe we can talk about. So the first one is, how useful is it for international citizens, let's say people who are visiting Palestine or other, regions that have a lot of war crimes or, different aspects like this. How useful is it for international citizens to have this app as well? If you think that's like something that would be important. Someone asked, if like that who just went back from Palestine and said that this might have been helpful as an app. So yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone is going into Palestine and they were already planning to take photographs, videos, I think this app could be hopefully useful for you. Um, because as we say, there's so many things that are occurring, and it's important to basically capture that, and with the idea that hopefully it can be used as evidence one day. Um, so absolutely.
And more broadly, how useful is it for maybe like different contexts? I know you mentioned like Ukraine and other contexts, but we also see, let's say, like in the US or UK where there's certain violence that might be committed by governments towards citizens or things like that. Is that something you guys are also thinking about in terms of expanding the app's reach to other regions of the world as well?
Yeah, so there's no sort of restriction on our end on who can use the app. It's just the app was designed to capture evidence of grave human rights violations and also potential international crimes. So as long as it fits within that ambit, there's no sort of restriction geographically. And the other thing is people don't need to, it's helpful for them to engage with us because then we can like support them, train people, things like this. But it's also possible for people to use the app completely anonymously or not engage with us. And we just store that footage and we can independently identify where that footage could go. Um,
Another question here is, have you seen how it has been helpful to document the manufacture of the excavators, such as what you showed regarding JCB?
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is the interesting point. These human rights violations, they don't happen in isolation. It's, various actors that sometimes are acting in consort for these things to take place. And so there's often, yeah, now a renewed look at how corporations and businesses are participating in this. So if someone sees these excavators being used to demolish homes, things like this, then photographs of the logos, what's actually occurring is definitely beneficial.
I see another question here about whether you could speak about maybe this is like more of a question about like your app and security in terms of like hacks, for example, from groups, and like how do you prevent that, or how do you recognize whether like a cyber attack or cyber breach is happening to your data or app?
Yeah, so I don't want to go because this is going to be published, right, Van?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Yeah, I don't want to go into too many details. If anyone has questions, we can talk privately as well. But just generally, we take that very seriously, and we have cybersecurity experts who advise us on this kind of thing because the where the app is being used are very sensitive contexts.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And maybe you can elaborate also just on what kind of trainings do you offer users? Because it seems like you guys have the legal side as well as, obviously using the technology and how do you use the app. So, if there's like a different types of trainings that you guys use.
Yeah, so the typical trainings that we offer are on how to install and use the app, but then also trainings on documentation techniques. So, as I was mentioning, depending on the context, we can talk about and the types of violations that are quite common in those contexts. We can have conversations about what to look out for when you're documenting certain types of human rights violations, what kind of shots to take, like close-up shots, medium shots. Um, Also when to use videos to capture versus still shots, things like this. And also, I mean, For people who are new to international law, we can also, explain what the human rights violations are, what are international crimes, what are the different elements of the crimes that need to be proven, things like this.
Thank you. Okay, I see some questions that are like some of them may not be relevant, at least to the Q&A for this session, but I do see someone with a few questions, but I'll ask maybe a question that maybe might not have been covered via the presentation, but one is uploading over data versus over Wi-Fi more or less like safe? Like, is there like a preference when you're documenting? Because I know you mentioned that you don't have to have Wi-Fi to use the app.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that was a question that someone had. Yeah.
Again, good question. So, yes, you need the internet to download the app. You don't need internet when capturing the footage, but you do need internet when uploading the footage. In terms of what to use, I personally prefer, if it's a secure Wi-Fi network, like your personal home Wi-Fi network that's password protected, that's potentially more safe. But I personally use data compared to open Wi-Fi networks that are freely available, that are public, because those tend to be not as secure. It also depends on the individual context. Like there's, the one thing we always say with the app is it has some security features, but it can't take away any inherent risks with this work. Um, yeah. The other thing is the
So
footage itself, when it's uploaded encrypted, as I mentioned. So it's broken down into tiny little pieces. So if a government is observing the internet and what's being sent across, you can't actually see the content of what's being uploaded. And it doesn't look like a big video. Um, it looks like an email.
yeah, that was really helpful. I think so. I also answered some questions here. I don't know if you see the chat right now. So if there's any mistakes I put, I know some people have had questions of, oh, can it be used in this context or that context? But it seems from your explanation that there's not any restrictions for using the app to document, any war crimes or atrocities, and that can, it can be used in really any type of situation where that is occurring. So that's how I answered at least those questions. Um, I don't really see other maybe questions that hasn't been addressed yet in the session. Um, or maybe if there's a way for people to contact you for this information, or how we can also support you. I know there's people who are, you know, international citizens, they're not really in a place where they're documenting or have the ability to document because they're not traveling to those locations or not living in those locations. So I wonder, how the international community can support the work that you're doing, in this really important work of documenting these crimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is we just try to do outreach and try to reach as many people as possible in the various contexts where there's so many human rights violations occurring. Um, and this is, as I say, it's just one tool in the toolkit for documentation and accountability. Um, so I'm just sorry, I'm looking at there's so many really good questions. I just want to make sure I've answered all of them. Dan, what do you think? Have we covered everything?
I think for the most part, if there's any questions that we seem to have missed, guys, just feel free to like repeat the question. Um, I know there were a few questions that were asked that were already explained, and some people arrived late to the session, so that can just be played back, if you need the answers to those. And I've put your website as well. I don't know if there's any other information that you would like to provide, for people to contact you.
Yes, so through there's a general email. Let me just try to find that email. But if you go to our website and go to the contact us section, you'll be able to find the email address. And yeah, please do send us an email and we can organize individual calls if you're interested in hearing more.
And I know you guys are also a nonprofit, so is there a way, like, are you guys supported by also grassroots donations? Is there a way for us to, let's say, like, donate to Eyewitness to Atrocities?
Oh, so we're primarily funded by the International Bar Association. Um, I don't know, I might ask my colleagues more about that and maybe send more information to you, Than. That's very kind of you to ask, but it's not something we've done before. But we're very lucky to have some stable sources of funding.
Okay, awesome. And also I think there were maybe like a few comments or questions that I think maybe we can I know like journalists was something that was brought up and how journalists can engage with this work because sometimes they might need evidence, that is untampered with. So I wonder also like what the role of journalists in this work could possibly be. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say it's similar to activists. I mean, I know a lot of journalists, they kind of have their own equipment as well when they're going out, but that can be used in tandem. So if they're capturing photographs with other cameras, but if they're also interested in documenting for accountability, they could, have the app on their phone and also use that as well. And so yeah, as I said, this app was the kind of raison d'être. The reason for it was to make sure this type of evidence is collected and stored in a proper way so that it can be ultimately used in courts. But that doesn't exclude people using it for advocacy and things like this as well.
Okay, wonderful. I don't see any other questions, so I wonder if there's like any last things you want to say to the audience. I just put someone just wanted to know more about the contact information, so I put the
Yeah, let
ref
me
link
try
for
to
that.
get the general email and I'll post it.
And for those who are like playing back the video after, I know the chat is not available, so I'll make sure to put that into the description. So that would be where people can access the website and then also the contact information after the session.
Yes, and then there was another good question just now. Has the footage been used in court? So it has. There was a case in the Democratic Republic of the Congo where footage that was captured by an organization on the ground, and we had this partnership with several organizations where ultimately that footage was admitted in a court in the DRC, and it helped find two people guilty of crimes against humanity. And they were subsequent, like that footage was found admissible by the courts, and that evidence, alongside other evidence, helped convict these two people who are serving life sentences. And that case helped provide reparations to around 100 victims as well. So this is really, powerful, important work of documenters. And more recently, footage from Ukraine has been used in Ukrainian courts. But more for civil cases rather than criminal.
Yeah, thank you, Nadeshda. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions, so um yeah, if there's any like last comments you would like to relay to us, that would be great.
Yeah, please do send us an email if you're interested and we can continue the conversation. But thank you for having us as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you so much for all the work that you're doing globally. And I'm sure that a lot of the people in the audience learned a lot about the work, and also I hope that the people on the ground that will be watching this will also appreciate at least the information that you provided. So I know we still have like some time left, so feel free, Nadeshda, if you need to leave, you can leave. But we'll spend like the next 15 minutes just to engage in action. So I'll just spend the next 15 minutes to share some actions of Sabio and other partners in terms of like advocacy for justice. So that's what we'll be doing for the remainder of our session. So again, thank you so much for joining us and for your time today.
No worries, Dan, and I'll stay on until the end.
Awesome. So let's turn to some actions. We have some new ones. As I said, that last week, Kumi now was paused so that we could focus on the Jerusalem Municipality Bill, which was a bill that was introduced and passed by the Israeli government that basically, uh, is supporting the full annexation of Jerusalem and a bunch of other settlements. And you can learn a little bit more about that. I think there was a video that we did 2 weeks ago, actually a little bit on East Jerusalem. So our speaker went into detail about this. But FOSNA, in response to this meeting that we had last week, created a resource page for Jerusalem. So I'll send this, or at least I can share my screen maybe, just to showcase what this looks like. So this is the web page that you can use to learn more about the Jerusalem Municipality Bill, what this entails, what the danger of it is, and it has a lot of resources, actions, and other events that are related to Jerusalem. So it has a lot of just resource pages. Here are some of the events that are happening from indigenous communities on the ground, also activists who are part of the East Jerusalem communities who are talking a little bit about the issues that they're going through, including house demolitions, um, certain taxes that are put upon businesses to try to stop the spread of Palestinian businesses. And so there's a lot of just different information that you can access here. So if you would like to just take a look at that, that's fosna.org/save Jerusalem. So I just want to share this page for anyone who would be interested in looking through this and engaging in some actions. The other action I wanted to share with everyone today, give me a second so I can pull it up. We have a global call to action happening from activists, including journalists from Gaza, who are asking the global community to join in a global strike. It's starting this Thursday and 21st of August, and they're asking people to participate every Thursday as well. So participants who are committing to the strike should buy nothing and spend zero money on Thursdays. And if you can skip work safely on Thursdays as well, you can. They're also encouraging you to do that. And I think there's also a number of groups that will be doing certain acts of civil disobedience and protests happening every Thursday, of course, on other days as well. But it's really important to kind of do it specifically on this day to create as much of a targeted impact as much as possible. So that's another action that I just want to bring up. There's no specific website for this, but this is just kind of one of the global calls that Sabeel will be supporting. And I know some people have asked for me to send the website for the Save Jerusalem, so I'll just link it in the chat. Oh, Carol already did it. So thanks, Carol. So you can just take a look at that link that I put. And other actions, we have kind of ongoing campaigns that we've put on our website. So the first one obviously is just there are certain on the ground grassroots campaigns that are happening in Gaza to continue um, supporting families and also providing aid and food. So that's on our website, and you can just take a look at that at kuminow.com/action. And there's also links to a number of protests that are happening, especially in the UK and the US. So there's a link for that as well on the Kumi Now action page. So I'll leave it there. Those are just a few actions that I want to highlight. And if there's other actions that people want to talk about, feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand. I'll stop the recording now so that if anyone wants to speak freely, they can do so.